So hello and welcome to this video on the TG2 Generator from Future Sound Systems Gristleizer series. Let's check out what's to come before we get into it. So on the original Gristleizer, the generator section was ultimately the LFO that gave us these tremolo-like effects. Now Future Sound Systems, Roy Gwinn and Chris Carter have expanded the generator to be an LFO or an audio source with the TG2. We have the wide range in frequency from slow LFOs up into the audio rate range. Now it doesn't go supersonic or anything like that, but it is wide ranging from LFO well up into the audio range. We can affect the rate with frequency, an attenuator or volt per octave. This will sync, which works really well as a modulation source or audio rate sync tones. We have a ramp out, which on this shape goes from triangle to falling saw to rising ramp. The fold output is fed by this shape, the shaped ramp. So triangles, ramps we feed into the folder, we get fold gain, really nice woody warm kind of tone to it, and a fold offset. And fold gain and offset have a CV input too. We have a pulse that is influenced by all three of these, the folding and the shape. So you get some interesting kind of different pulse trains pulling in little narrow pulses against thicker pulses. And we can get some really kind of interesting ramping, ratcheting rhythms that we look at later in the video out of that pulse as well. We also got a steady square at the clock output. So an LFO, audio rate modulator, or an audio source in itself. Let's dive into the TG2. So as the original Gristleizer had the LFO for tremolo-like effects on the unit, we're going to use the TG2 like an LFO. Have a basic sound going through the filter into the VCA, and the generator is going to modulate that VCA. Bit of noise, bit of delay in the background. This is all just for colour, and of course that great Gristleizer saturation character there. Ramp output. This will go nicely slow. Right up into audio rates. Shape will move that ramp from a triangle to a falling saw or a rising saw. And that fold output takes this ramp out and folds it. We can still shape the input to the folder. More gain. Offset that fold. Now the pulse out can be a normal pulse, but we can introduce extra pulses. So that's the generator as an LFO. Let's do a bit of a deeper dive of the audio rate side of this and listen to the TG2 itself. So let's explore the TG2 as an audio rate oscillator source. We have our ramp, fold, pulse and clock outs. We could use a clock for audio. It's simply a square wave. Let's start with the ramp. Now the folder takes that ramp input. The gain works like a VCA, so it's off. It does need some gain to be there. Shape again. Same effect as on the ramp out. and then fold gain, and the fold offset, and here's a couple of sample and hold waveforms into that fold gain and fold offset. Lots of really nice chunky mid-reach waveforms. We then have the pulse, which is affected by all three settings for both the fold and the shape, bringing up fold gain. There's our square. We can introduce more pulses into this waveform. PWM on that pulse out. Now, using the fold, let's check out some audio rate modulation of, say, gain. And it's absolutely lovely. Same source to fold offset. We could try that into frequency for some FM. And we could also try some sync. Let's just drop the rate of this oscillator. Ton of really great audio rate tones using the TG2 as an oscillator. So this is somewhat my kind of ultimate Gristleizer patch. I'm not currently utilising the TG5, the input, we'll come to that in another video, but I have an external saw wave. That oscillator has been sequenced into the filter, then into the VCA, and the generator with all its outs and modulating the fold gain and offset is modulating the filter and that VCA. Super filthy, super rubbery, nasal, absolutely packed with character. Let's listen for a second and just have a play around. I love the Gristleizers when they're together. And there is a little bit of PT delay in the background. I'll turn that off. What a nasty, dirty little family of modules this is. So the TG2 will track volt per octave, but over a somewhat limited range. And I just want to demo that to be super clear about it in the video. We've got quite a nice little melodic pattern here, moving just around an octave, within an octave's range, nicely in tune. And this is the ramp output into a dual VCA with an accent envelope and a normal envelope, giving us a bit more of a dynamic sequence. But as I turn the frequency up, we start to really top out that frequency that this is capable of. Because it's really an LFO, but I just wanted to use it as a kind of standard oscillator here as well. Now shaping, triangles to ramps and saws, that folded tone works well too. Really woody, warm kind of fold to it. Let's just check out a bit of modulation as well. Here's a triangle wave static oscillator into, let's say, the gain on the fold. FM if we use, say, frequency in. try some oscillator sync as well. Again, sync into a non-sequenced source here, just a static oscillator. That's some kind of standard oscillator functions as well. Now, I can't imagine anyone thought they were going to get a little rhythm generator in the TG2 demo, but here it is. I'll explain what's happening in a minute. Let me just turn some knobs first. So, I'll silence everything out on the mixer and go through what's going on. The clock output is simply my kick. At least something should have a vague kind of timing to it in this patch. The next patch is the snare drum, and you can see most of this patch there is a hi-hat module off screen. And because this is the pulse out, which is affected by shape, fold gain and fold offset, we can really start to mess with these rhythms. Bringing the kick back in for some kind of stability. There's lots of cool little ratchets and ramps and kind of retardandos in tempo. Really nice. I really like that. Start of a minimal techno tune. Anyway, moving on. Clap out is the folded output. So all these folds that we can introduce and the shaping there is going to affect the timing too. And that against the snare, they're often quite different rhythms. Kick back in. And then the ramp out is my hi-hat. Being on time. Introducing kind of double triggering. You get the idea. So all of them together. So in this patch, I just wanted to create some complex LFOs, movements, modulation out of the generator, and I've used some oscillators stacked up, mixed into a filter, and the generator is opening up the cutoff on this filter, then it feeds some delay and reverb. I'll let you just listen for a second. I'm using the folded output, and I have slow sine wave LFOs to the frequency, fold gain and fold offset, all of which are attenuated on the panel. Now we could try syncing this to the clock that is my pitch sequencer. Some nice in-time movement, but there's still some life and animation because there's modulation and the folded wave. Just unsync that again. Becomes a really interesting modulated modulation source. That's the TG2 from the Gristleizer series from Future Sound Systems. Check out more Gristleizer videos linked in the description with the TG3 and TG4. The TG5 input video will be coming in the not too distant future. Hit like, subscribe, support my work on Patreon. Have a great day. Cheers for watching. Bye bye.